Hey guys, today I have a few tips for you to improve your run and gun videography, and it doesn't matter if you vlog, you shoot travel videos or you shoot for clients. It will always either make your videos better or it will make your workflow faster, so keep watching. My first tip counts for particularly cloudy days, so days where it's sunny for a few minutes, then it's cloudy again and so on. The problem that you have there is white balance. Like if you set your white balance to sunny maybe at the beginning, then eventually you forget to reset it when it's cloudy again. And that's why on such days I simply set my white balance to 6000, because then it's right in the middle. Like daylight white balance is 5500 Kelvin and cloudy white balance is 6500 Kelvin, so we're sticking to 6000. I'm right in the middle, and that means that when I come back home I know that all of my clips don't have a correct white balance, but it's only about 500 Kelvin off, and that's actually quite easy to fix in post, especially if you use tools like Color Finale or DaVinci Resolve. And that saves me a lot of work, because otherwise I would likely have some shots where the white balance is correct and other shots where the white balance is completely off. So then it's better only to have the white balance a little bit off, and knowing that. Setting up the drone again, and the sun catches itself pretty nicely in the mountains. It gives some nice rim lights around the edges. It's beautiful. So the drone is updating right now. Time for the next tip, and the next tip is that you should be aware of your camera's limitations. So at first, for example, when you have a camera that only shoots 8-bit video, don't shoot log, because when you color grade the footage later, you have a bit more dynamic range, but you will easily get some artifacts in the shadows or banding in the skies and so on. You want to avoid that, but also especially if you have cameras with lower bit rates, but also only 8-bit, not 10-bit, etc., then generally be aware of your conditions that you're shooting in. Like when you shoot on cloudy days, for example, it's better if you shoot in a contrasty picture profile, and if you shoot on sunny days, then it's generally better to use a flat picture profile or even log, especially if you have a 10-bit camera. When it's a cloudy day, for example, and you shoot in a flat picture profile, you can actually see in the histogram that the histogram gets super small, and that makes it very hard for the camera to save, because there's not much contrast, and the picture profile itself also doesn't have much contrast, so it's really hard for the camera to see all the small details there, and then you will get a bad image. So definitely be aware of your camera's limitations. You also learn more about that in my mirrorless camera basics course. There I teach you all the technical stuff about cameras. So after watching this course, you will be able to make better decisions on how to set up your camera in certain conditions, and also to make better buying decisions based on what shots you want to get. But now back to the drone here. 70% for stupid fly-safe data upgrade. Okay, I just saw that I only have a 3G connection here, so that's probably the reason. It's not DJI's fault. And my next tip is one that I see especially beginners doing a lot, and that's to simply shoot intentional. Maybe you saw people like that on touristy spots that just have the camera in their hand and pretty much have it rolling all the time, just pointing it here, pointing it there, but they never really get a shot intentionally. And the problem with that is at first that, of course, in the edit you have pretty long files, and it's therefore really hard to filter out the moments that really make the story at the end, or that are at least looking good. And the second much worse problem is actually that when you don't shoot intentionally, like short shots intentionally, then none of your shots will actually turn out good. So generally when you shoot videos, you want to be intentional about what you want to capture. So for a travel video, for example, if you arrive at the spot, you want to ask yourself, what is the spot about? Is there, maybe you go to a temple, and the temple is obviously the main subject, but then there are also like many things around the temple that can be interesting. So you want to ask yourself, how can I capture the feeling or tell the story of this place? So it's like travel videos, sometimes they have a story, sometimes you just want to deliver the feeling of a certain place or a certain country, and you cannot do that by just running around shooting randomly. You really have to be intentional with your shots. So how I do it usually when I arrive at the place is that I first look what is my main subject, or what are my main subjects that I want to get shots of, and then I also look what are foreground objects that I can use to make the shots a bit more interesting. Do I want to have a person in the shot or whatever. And then I also look about the light, like where does the light come from? Can I put it behind the subject or so on? And generally, how can I frame my shots to make them look beautiful? So I always ask myself these questions, and that helps me a lot to come up with better shots. So you should definitely stop just running around, pointing your camera everywhere. Really be intentional about your shots. It will make your videos so much better. And here's actually a good example for my next tip, which is to always be aware of your background. So for example, when I position my face like that, then you see the mountains in the background. They go through my face, which looks pretty weird. So here the framing would definitely be a bit better like that. That's less weird. But even here, like the reflections are a bit distracting, which is not too bad. So what you see in Hollywood movies, for example, often what they do is either that they simply blur out the background more when they have situations like that, or what you can also do is to simply use a more zoomed in lens, because then the background comes closer, and that helps to get rid of it, like to get rid of this framing. Like here, for example, when I go to 28mm now, just not super close, but you can definitely tell because the background now is a bit closer to me. It helps me a little bit to stay away from the mountains. Of course, I can also make the mistakes here, but it is easier than because the background is closer. What you also need to be aware of when it comes to the background is if there's anything distracting in the background. I actually talked about that in a video I published recently about how to make your videos pop in camera, and that's like when there are maybe yellow or red objects in the background somewhere that just distract the viewer from your face or from whatever he should see, then that also makes your shot bad. So be aware of something like that. You can simply reframe your shot to get rid of those objects, to push them outside of the frame, or you can also zoom in more to make it easier. But what you can also do is later in the color grade, especially when the object is a bit farther away from your main subject, you can simply desaturate it so that no one sees it anymore. So oftentimes you can fix it in post, but not always, so be aware of that. Really have to get out of the sun now. It's getting pretty hot here quickly. Gorilla Pod. And let's come to the next tip, and that's regarding getting smooth shots when you have to walk, like a bit longer shots where you would usually use a gimbal for. Of course, when you do run and gun, you usually don't want to bring a gimbal. So what I simply do is, instead of using a gimbal, I use my GoPro or simply an Osmo Pocket, because these cameras, I mean, they don't have the same optical qualities, of course, as your mirrorless camera or DSLR has. But these cameras are actually pretty capable, and if you only put maybe 3 to 5 shots in a 3-minute video from an Osmo Pocket or a GoPro, you color grade it like closely to the footage you have from your main camera, then no one can notice the difference, but it saves you so much space in the bag. So actually over the past few years, even when I was on professional shoots, when I shot for backpacking companies, etc., I always used my GoPro if I needed to get some shots where I had to walk and I wanted to be smooth. And especially the DJI Osmo Pocket 2 looks pretty impressive, right? It has a bit bigger sensor, you have all the tracking options, comes with a microphone, etc. So that's overall a product that I can absolutely recommend to get if you want to shoot a lot of run and gun and you need some stable shots on the go. And another tip that will really improve the optical qualities of your videos when you shoot run and gun, something that is used all the time in studios. So if you got a lot of studio shots before, you probably know that, but the technique is called backlighting. So basically you want to make sure that the sun or whatever light source you have when you do run and gun is either behind your subject or at least with a flat angle, so that you get this nice rim light around your subject. And if it comes more from the side, you can also do so by simply filming the dark side of the face more. Here's actually a good example for that. Now you see here's the shadow side of my face, there's the light. Also some light hits the right part of my face here. And that's not completely backlight, and like now the sun comes like in about 90-degree angle to the camera. And that's a technique that you can use also a lot, like similar to backlight, just filming the dark side of the face more, because that makes the shot a bit more three-dimensional, because the light gives more shadow here in the face. So the drone is still charging. I definitely won't be able to get more shots today, but that's fine. I think we can end the video here. And if you want to see more tutorials about how to shoot B-roll on the go or run and gun style, then write the hashtag B-roll in the comments, because over the past few years I actually only shot run and gun style, like for travel companies, backpacking and day spas, etc. So there was nothing really planned before, and I had to make sure that the footage comes out as good as possible. So if you want to see more tutorials like that, just leave that hashtag in the comments so I know you're interested in that. Aside from that, of course, hit the subscribe and the bell notifications button for upcoming tutorials, and I hope to see you in the next one. Yeah, battery was still at about 50%, so I was able to get a few cool shots. Good ending here of the morning, but I would say it's time now to drive back and eat breakfast.